It's been a minute, a good little bit since I've had this crew here. If you're not familiar with the Road to Mutant Mayhem, it was a little series we did where we talked about all the TMNT movies leading up to Mutant Mayhem. We're doing the same thing now with all the TV shows leading up to the release of Tales of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. We are going to do a little performance for you all, and then we're going to talk about the 87 iteration of TMNT. So if you would please have a seat, get some popcorn, kick back, relax, and enjoy the sweet sounds of my little choir here. Are we ready? 3,
I'm ready.
2, 1. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Heroes in a half shell. Turtle power. We've got to do something.
Put me down, you big Abe.
Okay, so just a little breakdown. Again, if you haven't seen the Road to Mutant Mayhem videos, how this works. I'm your host, Geekily. This is my YouTube channel, but this series is more of a spotlight on the community that likes TMNT beyond just me. That rhymed. So we are going to go around and introduce ourselves, and for the most part, I'm going to take a back seat. I'll chime in here and there with a few ideas and things I want to say about the shows, but for the most part, this is going to be driven by our lovely cast here. Cast, please introduce yourselves. Don't take 30 minutes of silence. Just somebody please hop immediately so we can keep this going.
It was one time.
That's a little reference to a previous video. But who wants to introduce themselves first? Go ahead.
Hey, everybody. Long time no see. It's me, Madison, but please call me Maddie. I'm delighted to be here again with all my lovely co-hosts. I'm so excited to be talking about turtle stuff again. Cowabunga!
Feels weird being here again. Hello, Echo. There's no Echo. Okay. Hello, folks. It's you know me as Jackson, but please just call me Jack or Jackals. And yo, I don't know what to say. I'm just happy to be here with everyone. I'm losing words, so I'm gonna shut up and let everybody introduce themselves. So, moving on.
Alex?
My God, Kieran, you're the problem. You're the problem. It's you. Go ahead.
I just get cut off. Hey, I'm Alex, and I just want to say it's good to see everyone here again.
I swear we got off this bus ages ago. Like, why are we still here? What's happening? Oh, hi.
Yeah, where are we?
Kieran, how's it going?
As usual, Madison is our mastermind with a lovely presentation regarding the 1987 Fred Wolf Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles animated series. So, Madison, why don't you go ahead and take it away and show us what you got information-wise. What are we looking at?
Yeah, of course. So let's jump on back into the time machine and travel all the way back to 1984 for a second. Right as the comics were starting to really take off in popularity in the underground scene, of course, Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird were approached by Mark Friedman, who is an MVP in this turtle fandom. God bless him. He approached them and they got the license from him to turn them into toys. And then from then on, it became so big that they eventually got a license to go to television, right? And then it just blew up. On December 14th, 1987, the first of the 5 episode pilot came out. And kids didn't know it then, but this show would go on to make history in the broadcast waves. It was like, they described it as like an earthquake, right? It would start to shake a little, rise, and then, boom, Turtle Mania was upon us. It was like, this 5 episode pilot was the beginning of a pop culture icon, really. So, if it were not for the 1987 show essentially playing the part of the godfather of this franchise, we would not be here. We would not be here without it. So, this show was so popular, it ran for 10 seasons. 10 straight seasons of constant back-to-back-to-back turtle stuff. And it's so much fun. As someone who was not in the age demographic of the 90s kids that grew up with it. I came upon this show later on in life and recently watched up to the 7th season, and I can safely tell you that this show is so goofy. It's so fun. It's so funny. Like, there's jokes in this show that when you watch it as an adult, it just hits different for some reason. Like, I can't describe it, but it's just so funny when you watch it with the full context of understanding. Like, when you grow up and understand what they're trying to tell you, right? So, I do have a list of pros and cons, but I don't want to keep the conversation as a ramble. So,
Oh, no, you're
I'm going
all
to let... I'm sorry. I'll pass it on to whoever else wants to start the conversation.
Well, I guess like good place to start would be kind of like how we did with the like first episode of Road to Mutant Mayhem originally, was how everyone's first impressions or first time watching the show, like what that whole experience was like. And for me, like I said it before, but my first introduction to 87 came from not the original airing, because obviously I live in Ireland, so we had the UK edit of the show where it was Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles, where they basically re-edited the show to remove any mention of the word ninja. Mikey had no nunchucks, so they had to stitch together episodes from like season 4 and onward when he had the grappling hook as his main weapon and so on. So it was a slightly different experience, and then coming back to it when I was much older, I picked up the 25th anniversary DVD set, which was only the first 2 seasons for us, with like half of season 10 as like bonus features, and even then it was out of order. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, I haven't watched much of 87, and like I was very slow to like getting some of it watched for the retrospective. That's my fault. I'm sorry. But it is a fascinating like going back to it, because there's not a lot of 80s cartoons I've gone back to, and usually going back to stuff like this, there's a sense of it doesn't always age well, either because of like the writing or because the pacing. But honestly, the first 5 episodes are pretty solid. And then season 2 and onward, from what I remember, just being full of laughs. And I honestly, this is going to be a bit of a hot take, because I know everyone says that like, oh, it's Toei Animation did the first season. I feel like the animation got better with season 2 and onward, honestly, because there was more of a consistency in the color palette, and like all the characters felt more on model with one another. I feel like in season 1, the turtles look very inconsistent model-wise between shots, and it was a little bit off-putting at times. You had some really goofy faces thrown in, whereas when I jumped into watching a bit of season 2 leading up to this, I felt like it was more consistent with itself in terms of how it was animated. And maybe it's also just my own bias, because I learned like recently that in fact an animation studio in Ireland did a lot of the animation for this show. So, you know, I have a somewhat of an attachment to this show, even if tangential, because my country had some involvement with this. So, yeah.
Cool.
So back then, when I was like 5, I think, I was already a big turtle geek at the time. So my mom thought it was like a brilliant idea to grab like some little DVDs of like some like 87 episodes. Like every time I get back from school, I'll just watch those. I kind of remember some of it, not a lot of it, but I remember I always used to have like a lot of fun watching these 4 oversized turtles having a fun time. But yeah, and I watched rewatched a few episodes, and it's really good.
I remember I was in Cracker Barrel, and you know that little store they have in there with like DVDs and stuff. Well, I saw the 1987 DVD. I think it was like some of the episodes, I think, from one of the seasons. I know it was like the earliest seasons, but it had like the Red Sky seasons as like, I think, on special features. And I would watch them when I was little, or I think it was like probably 10 or 11 around the time when I got more DVDs after that. But
Yeah.
I actually did enjoy the 87 series.
I did when I was really little, still walking around in pull-ups and stuff. I was introduced to the live action films. I always forget if it was the first film or Secret of the Ooze. I think it was Secret of the Ooze that I saw first. and I was just obsessed with those movies. And as a hand-me-down from my older sister, who grew up with the VHS tapes of the 87 cartoon, that's what I got. It was a hand-me-down. I don't know why I worded it like that, but you know what I mean. So
Nice.
from those
That's
hand-me-downs, I got into the
That's
87
cool.
cartoon. And for the longest time in my little kid brain, I was like, oh my God, they made a cartoon off of that live action movie I love. Even though, obviously I was just introduced to it in that order. I, for the longest time as a kid, thought that the live action movie was the first iteration of TMNT. Then they made a cartoon based off of that. But I watched the same episodes on loop. There were 2 to 3 VHS tapes that I kept up with. And it was part of that line that I don't know if you guys have seen, but what's it called? Like, I know it
Hurricane
had,
Kids Club?
was it Sewer Heroes or something?
Hmm.
It was something like that. If I find it, I'll see if I can find the name for it. For the longest time, that was the form of Turtles that I consumed, and I loved every bit of it. So that's my little 2 cents. I'll hand it back to you guys.
As you can see, the pros and cons list is kind of evened out. Like, there might be a little bit more pros. There's also some cons, but it's kind of evened out. I don't really have a lot of issues with the OG show, as I do with a lot of the others later on. But that's just because I think the 87 show was just the format of, like, setting up these characters and what kind of adventures they go on. It was made for an entirely different audience, obviously. It was made for, like, the kids of the 80s into the 90s. So, like, the humor is a lot more different, and, like, the jokes are a lot more different. But I think there's something in this show that even everybody can enjoy, from kids even to us, adults.
I wanted to bring this up real quick. I'm not sure if it's going to appear in your presentation. Just like random. Have you guys, because when I was little, I used to do this all the time. I'd watch the toy commercials from every iteration. They had a specific theme song for the toy line, for the Playmates Toys commercials for the 87 series. That song is a freaking banger, and I wish they dropped the full version. It's just the chorus from what I remember, though, and like maybe one tiny verse.
I'm not so sure if I'm
Was-
familiar with it, to be
What was
honest.
it?
That sounds cool.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Turtles.
That's it.
Yeah, this is what I love. Like, this is what I love about doing this stuff. It's like I love hearing everybody's different perspectives about this stuff. It's so much fun. So I gotta, first of all, we gotta address, like, we gotta address, like, the best Shredder, and that's this Shredder. Rest in peace, James Avery. You
Yes.
were an incredible actor. You brought Shredder to life in a way that I don't think anybody else really could.
Krang.
I watched interviews of James Avery talking about what he did for the Shredder. He said he brought, like, a Shakespearean kind of, like, voice to it. Like, he brought the Shredder from, like, this, like, hammy villain to, like, an actual threat when it came to be. Like, some people might just think that 87 Shredder's just a throwaway joke and, like, just not a threat. Turtles forever. But
Oh, I want to conquer Earth.
I love James Avery's Shredder. I really do think that 87 Shredder is probably like my top 3, like, the most defining Shredders. Like, rest in peace, James Avery. You were a goat. I just had to give him a shout out because he was phenomenal as the Shredder. First of all, I love April in 1987. I freaking love April in the show. She's not just a damsel in distress like a lot of the fans think. She is a go-getter. She is smart. She's clever. She doesn't just go into danger expecting to get kidnapped every episode. She's like, oh no, this is my chance to get a promotion. This is my chance to get a story. I'm going to be the first on the scene to get the story and to make the Turtles look like heroes. She gets to fire a laser gun in my favorite episode of this franchise. And I'm like, you go, girl. April O'Neil is a freaking boss. I love 87 April. She's so funny. Like, she has no right to be as funny as she is sometimes. Like, there's this one episode where the Turtles have been kidnapped and there's, like, a bomb about to go off, and she, like, and Leo's telling her to run, and it was like, never say no to a reporter, and she dives behind the bomb and pulls the plug, and Leo's like, wow, how did you defuse the bomb? And she just goes, I unplugged it. April's such a boss. I love her.
That is Scooby-Doo levels of logic, and I love it. Like, that's like the kind of comedy writing I love in cartoons. Just like, the most nonsensical stuff, but also it's like just playing it completely straight.
Another pro I had that I really want to go over before I get to the cons. Almost every single side character, well, almost every single side character in this franchise, in this show in particular, are standouts. They're literally standouts. I loved almost all of them. I love Irma. I love Mondo Gecko. I love Lotus Blossom. I love Mona Lisa. I love, like, all these cool side characters that, like, only get, like, 1 or 2 special episodes dedicated to them. Like in Lotus Blossom's case.
Yeah.
But, like, they are so much fun. I wanted to know so much more about Lotus. I wanted to see more of Mona. I wanted to see more of Irma. Well, we do see more of Irma, but, like, I wanted her to get, like, her own special, like, standout moment other than, like, the 50-foot tall Irma episode where she was just depicted as a big crybaby.
Right.
Like, no, Irma is literally me. It's like, I look at Irma and I go, we would be friends.
I thought that on my rewatch.
Oh my god.
Like, I love Irma. I just love all these characters. So this is gonna be rare coming from me throughout this retrospective, but this is the first show on the list where I'm like, no, I love almost every single character. There's almost not a character other than Vernon that, like, I
Excuse
really
me.
love.
Not Vernon.
Come on, April.
Come on, Maddie.
Come on, Maddie. Why you hating on Vernon?
We've got $1 million in state-of-the-art equipment here. I'm not gonna let it sit around in the street in the dead of the night.
Why does he have that accent? That's something I'm just thinking about.
He's just got such a Smellish voice about him, and it's so entertaining.
I could literally go on. I could literally go on all night talking about how great some of these side characters are, but I don't want to keep this like as a constant drag. And I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on like all these guys, but like I just want to hit the cons first, if that's okay. Like I don't want to take up the discussion.
Yeah.
The later seasons got darker. Like, of course, I'm talking about the Red Sky arc.
Yeah, with my goat
8,
Carter.
9, and 10.
Yeah, Carter
was cool.
Carter was him,
but
bro.
Yeah.
he didn't have a lot to do, if that makes
He
sense.
really
Like
didn't.
his character
I can see that.
flip-flopped. Where in one episode he would be straight up Casey Jones, and then the next he would literally just be like, "Oh, I exist. I'm here." Like Carter literally could have been another Casey Jones if they'd written him better. Like that's just my
So
opinion.
true.
The show getting darker would not have been a problem, especially in today's audience, where we crave the angst and like the darkness. For a generation of kids growing up in like the late '90s, where everything was like, "Oh, cowabunga, dude, rad, bodacious," like it was seen as too edgy for kids. And as the show got darker, less people started watching because they had gotten so used to the happy-go-lucky cowabunga, dude, like fun turtles. They weren't used to Michelangelo actually having a crisis in one episode.
Yeah,
And poor
that's
writing.
very much.
And I feel like the reason why it got darker is because it was after the movie's released.
I would say, yeah, I was going to say it was because after the first film had come out, but also I think a byproduct of it was, of course, Batman the Animated Series, which, you know, revolutionized, like, animation around that time. Well, that maybe not revolutionized, but it definitely, like, pushed the envelope in terms of, like, what was acceptable for a kid's cartoon or what you could do with a kid's cartoon. Well, I say kids cartoon, but like animation in general, and like not like limiting it to like, oh, we got to keep it happy-go-lucky. It's gonna be goofy. It's gonna have some jokes, and it's like no, we like the Batman the Animated Series goes into some really dark places at times.
Yeah.
No, I agree with you.
And you can kind of tell that they were trying to go for something like that because they even changed the sky to being red, just like in that show.
And also, bro, and I also want to mention something. This is like kind of like a funny thing. Like out of all the Red Sky episodes I've seen, you know, kind of funny. Like I've never seen the turtles ever mention or eat pizza. That's like the
Yeah,
most
they got so
weirdest
emo
thing.
that they foresaw pizza. Like they just cut it out of their diet. They were like, "We don't need this anymore. We're My Chemical Romance turtles now."
There are a handful of episodes I know of where they couldn't get all of the voice cast involved. I think
Yeah.
European Vacation was definitely a byproduct of that, because I think I remember I was watching the episode where the turtles go to Dublin. Not biased at all, but I swear it was a completely separate guy as Donnie in that episode. I do not I thought it was a completely different guy from what I recollect of watching that episode. But yeah.
No, yeah, there's one episode in that season where they meet Merlin the Wizard, and Raphael is just completely different. Like that was not Rob Paulson doing the voice. Like that was either a stand-in or that was an understudy, because that was not Rob Paulson in that episode. This isn't really like a bad con per se, but the animation flubs and the voice sync is off most of the time. But I generally think that it just adds to the charm of the 87 show, because
I'm
they
in
even
that same
referenced it
boat.
in
Yeah.
2012.
It's charming to me.
I lost track of how many times during season 1 and the few episodes of season 2 I rewatched where the voice completely did not match the turtle.
Yeah,
Like,
or like how some of the
Donnie would be
turtles have
Raph, Mikey would be Leo at points, and it's like, what the heck is
Yeah, I
happening
mean,
here?
to be fair,
They're ventriloquists.
there's an error in every single episode in the title card. You have Leo eating the pizza and Mikey with the swords.
Yeah.
There's that, also
or
that. No title card for Don or Raph, though, for some reason.
Or another thing too is that when you see like two of the turtles, one of them will like Leo or Raph, like they'll just be wearing a blue or red bandana, and next to the other one that's wearing a red or blue bandana or purple or orange. And I'm thinking, this was the '80s, so animation was kind of a little bit bad back then. So
Plus, you have moments where all of a sudden Leo becomes a clone of Raph in the same shot.
yeah,
They took Mikey's nunchucks away later on in the show.
Yeah.
mhm.
I understand why, because like now that I've done more research about why nunchucks were banned in like the late 80s and 90s, I'm like, oh, okay, there's some reason for like that to be a thing, but like it's a cartoon. No 5 to 10-year-old is not gonna go up to their mother and go, "Mommy, I want to buy a pair of nunchucks and beat up other kids with them." Like, this is a cartoon, Karen.
I mean, to be fair, I
No
did that.
child.
Yeah,
I'm joking.
It stems.
I'm just imagining.
I'm about to say something funny. Just walks up to the mom. Hey, mom, I'm going to stab you in the leg with this side.
Like they were
Oh my
more
God,
concerned
oh my
about
God.
the nunchucks than the sword and the side. Like,
No.
It's definitely
my
a double
God.
standards thing, but like it also was a byproduct of like, from what I have researched, is that Bruce Lee movies had an influence on some kids, and they thought, "Oh, let's do the cool nunchucks thing," and then they end up getting hurt, and like, "Oh, we have this kids cartoon that's promoting nunchucks. Like, let's not do that." But also part of it is because, like, considering we had like TMNT, TMHT Hero Turtles in the UK, it just meant that removing his nunchucks made it easier for like, what is it? Localization for like the censored version of the show where he didn't have the nunchucks, so all they had to worry about was cutting out ninja from the dialogue,
Yeah.
which didn't at all sound like hokey when you listen to the sound edit. I haven't watched much of the UK episodes like since coming across, I think, like the first VHS of that, but it's definitely something I want to look back at some point, just because it's a very interesting bit of like, you know, media censorship that, like, you know, it's very rare nowadays.
I love Crane, don't get me wrong, but Crane can get so repetitive with the "let's take over the city" schemes. Like, he
Shredder.
just needs to go to marriage counseling. I genuinely think that 1987 is one of the best things to happen to this franchise. Like I said, I have literally almost nothing bad to say about it because it's just so wholesome. It's so much fun. And I had a great time rewatching it. I love the 87 cast. I love the characters. So yeah, I really love it.
Yeah, this series is what started off the whole franchise.
Yeah.
It is, yeah.
Excuse
As
me,
I saw-
Mirage.
They're going to be in the comments. I'm
I
just
know.
addressing them. Shut up, guys. We know.
Enjoy your
We
last
know.
Ronin, guys.
Listen,
Come on.
Mirage kicked it off. This is what made it boom. That's what we mean.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mirage walked so that 87 could run. There you go.
And then the movies really kicked off Turtle Mania.
So you guys, I know people are tired. Oh, 87 is everywhere. Listen, get over it. Get over it. When
There's a
people
lot of
on
nostalgia for
average
this version.
think of TMNT, just the same way when I say Superman, you think of that classic shield that he wears on his chest. You're 9 times out of 10 going to see one of the 87 Turtles' faces in your head. For a majority of people on Earth, okay, they're the definitive look for TMNT. Almost every iteration at some point makes a visual reference to it. Get over yourself. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I love
get
87.
over
I always
yourself.
will. I'm not one of these haters.
Oh yeah, no, it needs to be said because, like, as I so often say, it goes without saying that without this show, like, the franchise wouldn't be where it's at today, and we have, like, because realistically, 2003 wouldn't have happened if not for this show, and
Nope.
2012 wouldn't have happened if not for this show. Every like version of Turtles that we've gotten since this show has this show to thank for it.
Did we even
So-
talk about this? Like, that this show is the reason we have the multicolored bandanas?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the reason Mikey has a personality beyond just being a blank slate in the Mirage comics. There, I said it. Fight me.
Wow.
The VHS tapes, I found it. It's called Sewer Heroes, and there were 4 of them. So I'll just go ahead and knock that out. But in terms of my favorite character, I'm really gonna have to go with Don Turtelli. Okay, so that's the end of our video. Thank you so much.
on that.
Well, thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you all for watching. We're celebrating this old franchise, this senior citizen franchise, turning 40. Not so teenage anymore, you 40-year-old. So, yeah.
They're closing in on midlife crisis Mutant Ninja Turtles, if anything.
I actually saw like a fan made shirt saying middle-aged turtles, and I was like, wait, what?
Senior Mutant Ninja Turtles.
You guys want to head out with the Cowabunga dudes?
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
I'll let you guys have it. I'll lead you into it. You guys ready?
Yeah.
Ready?
3, 2, 1.
Cowabunga dudes.
That was not in time. Cowabunga dudes.
I like
Nah, but,